help me welcome to the stage Chris Hegedus.
Oh my goodness, it's just so beautiful to see everybody here. It's overwhelming for all of us, you can tell from everybody crying, and I hope I don't start crying, but anyway, and Joan, didn't we see you a little bit there in the pumping iron, kind of drifting across the screen? My goodness. Well, I feel so lucky to introduce my great friend over 40 years. We met when we were first in the hospital when we were born. Joan Churchill. Joan is a director and pioneering cinematographer, and she was an inspiration for me when I started filming in the 1970s. But when Joan began shooting film, she was probably the only woman in a whole field of techie guys, and this took enormous guts. But Joan showed them that she could do it, that she was their equal, even though Joan was thin as a rail, and still is. And back then, she was carrying around this huge, heavy beast of a camera, the Eclair MPR, I think it was. Penny used to always say that, here comes Joan, she's got a Volkswagen engine hanging on her shoulder. But Joan was so steady when she was shooting Punishment Park. I think that was probably in the early 70s, which was a fiction film, but it was shot cinema verite style with actors. That the director, Peter Watkins, told Joan she was too steady. So when she was shooting, he started bumping her, so she'd kind of deliberately shake, which kind of is in vogue now, actually, in films. Early on, Joan was the cinematographer on the seminal concert documentary, Give Me Shelter. And by the Maisels. But Al Maisels acknowledged that it was Joan who took the terrifying shot of Mick Jagger, who was performing, and in the background was this guy freaking out on this really bad acid trip. But unfortunately, Joan could relate, and she told me that when she arrived at the festival, she ate food that was spiked with LSD, and she spent the next 10 hours of the concert under the stage, curled in a ball, tripping. But Joan was always a professional. She recovered. She got back on the stage and took one of the most memorable shots in the film. When I met Joan, she had already hooked up with the dashing Nick Broomfield, soon to be her husband. I love that Joan flipped the old stereotype roles. Finally, the woman was behind the camera and the guy was taking sound. I tried to do this with Pennybaker, but he always made so much noise holding the mic that I finally gave up. Around this time, Nick and Joan occasionally worked out of a back room in our office on West 45th Street. Never lacking in charm or determination, the two of them convinced the top brass at the Pentagon to give them special access inside an Army training camp for women. The film Soldier Girls went on to win the prestigious British BAFTA Award, and Broomfield and Churchill continued to co-direct really an impressive number of amazing films. And they followed subjects that ranged from the comedian Lily Tomlin to the serial killer Aileen Wuornos. As many of you may know, filming real-life stories takes courage, patience, and I would add what Peter said, responsibility and sensitivity. Pennybaker once said that he's a person with a camera trying to see inside the innermost secrets of the human heart. Joan shoots from the heart with passion, and we feel it. Joan's own mentor was the great director and cinematographer Haskell Wexler. You know his films, Medium Cool, Coming Home, starring Jane Fonda. But what many of you may not know is that Haskell equally adored Joan. He was incredibly proud when Joan became the first documentary camera person to be accepted into the American Society of Cinematographers. And one of the few women. When we eventually left our old movie cameras behind on the shelves and moved into digital filmmaking, Joan had remarried, and her partner in life and work was audio engineer Alan Barker. Joan remained true to her mantra, always marry a sound man. The small digital camcorders with flip-out screens meant that Joan could film in a new way. She wasn't stuck hiding behind the lens anymore. She could look her subjects in the eye and developed an increasingly fluid shooting style and an even more intimate relationship with her subjects. Throughout her long career, Joan filmed for many of my friends. Finally, in 2000, we got the chance to work together. The Coen brothers invited Penny and me to film a concert at the Grand Ole Opry, featuring the legendary musicians from the soundtrack of O Brother, Where Art Thou? Joan and Alan were the very first people we called to join us. Let's take a look at the work of this amazing woman.